welcoming you all to our car ownership and driving in Portugal presentation, which will begin with Jerry here, Jerry Lawler of Expats Portugal. Over to you, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Carl, and hello and good evening to everyone. This is a presentation that we've made before, and I've updated it, and I'm really grateful that we've got Nuno here tonight, who will help me with the technical stuff and the driving in Portugal and so on. Both Nuno and I are avid electric vehicle fans, so we welcome your questions on that. And between us, we're pretty sure we can handle most things. But if there's anything that comes up specifically where we needed ACP, let us know, and we will get you a direct answer. So I'm going to talk first and foremost a little bit generalized about motoring in Portugal. If I could get rid of Carl's picture. Oh, there we go. I've moved you. Sorry about that, Carl.
Charming.
So just to touch a little bit on the general points about driving in Portugal. There are approximately 4.9 million cars. We're not sure about that number. It might be over the 5 million now. Private cars, we're not talking about commercial vehicles, registered in Portugal. Just to give you a comparison, there are something like 33 million in the UK. So you can imagine that the roads are very much quieter here, and there's a lot more space for a lot less cars than the UK, for instance. So outside of the built-up areas, the roads are quiet and generally in good condition. It's really is a pleasure to go for a drive here. Do you remember that when we all used to enjoy going for a drive? The scenery is not bad, and if you really look out and keep your eyes open, you'll spot a castle or two on the way. Old cars are very common in Portugal because they don't rust and they're relatively cheap to maintain. Portuguese people love estate cars, or station wagons as they're often known, and oddly, black is their favorite color, which I always think is very odd when for such a hot country, but there we are. Perhaps Nuno can expand on that one later. Most Portuguese people prefer to drive manual or stick shift cars, but there are plenty of automatic cars available, especially those manufactured within the last few years. And as we move into hybrid and electric cars, of course, they're all automatic or semi-automatic. Full electric cars are becoming very popular in Portugal. Portugal generates the vast majority of its electric power from wind. So we have very little use of fossil fuels here. Electricity is definitely the way to go as far as cars are concerned, in my opinion. And we can talk about the charging facilities available, and there are lots more coming, but generally there's no problem in getting charging in Portugal. So, where should you buy a car in Portugal? My opinion, try to buy from a dealer rather than an unknown private individual. If it's someone you know, great, but if it's not someone you know, then be cautious. Why? Well, obviously with a dealer, you'll get a warranty. You'll either get the manufacturer's own warranty if the car is still relatively new, or the dealer will give you a warranty, often up to 2 years. And they might be a small dealer. You might buy the car in the Algarve and live in Porto, for example, but the dealer will have connections with a garage in Porto. So if you need repairs, the dealer will send you to a garage local to you. Any outstanding finance will have been checked by the dealer. And this is important because if you buy a car which has outstanding debt, you could inherit the debt. So it's very important, again, that it would be my recommendation to go to the dealer who will check all that for you. The dealer will handle the registration requirements. Again, if you buy privately, you will need to do that, and you will need to take the documents and have the car properly registered in your name and so on. And most dealers will have a get you home insurance. So you can buy the car, drive it home, and then you can talk to Nuno about the best deals on insurance and so on. There are two areas where I think, two websites that are worth looking at. The main one being standvirtual.com. You can see the address there. It's a very comprehensive site. Most cars that are for sale in Portugal, new and used, are advertised on that site. And there's some great search facilities in terms of the type of car you want, the type of fuel you want, the mileage, and so on. And most importantly, the price. So I highly recommend that site to look for cars. What to buy? I say this for our American friends who may not be as familiar with the diesel fuel. Diesel cars are quite prolific in Portugal, especially older cars. For years and years, the governments in Europe have been encouraging us to buy diesel cars. Now they decided we shouldn't buy diesel cars, so diesels are slowly being sort of phased out. But think also about the cost of fuel and the miles per gallon. And currently, prices have dropped recently, but currently diesel is around €1.64 per litre, which is equivalent to about $6.41 per American gallon. And petrol is around, or gasoline is around €1.70 per litre, which is about $6.67 per American gallon. So it's quite expensive by American standards. I know the prices have gone up in the States as well, but still, I think it's important to consider what mileage you might get from the car, because fuel is quite an expense. Insurance, now I'm going to touch on this generally, and Nuno is the man to talk to in more specific terms, but to give you some ideas, a small family car that was registered in 2016 will cost around €300 per annum for fully comprehensive insurance. A medium family car registered in 2016, €216 per annum for third party. A large executive car registered in 2017, around €800 per annum, fully comprehensive. In Portugal, we insure the car, not the driver, so you don't need additional insurance to have other drivers on your vehicle, provided they are legally entitled to drive in Portugal. They can drive your car with your permission. Third party fire and theft, and fully comprehensive insurance packages are available. Comprehensive insurance is not usually available for cars over 10 years old. No doubt Nuno will expand on this a little bit more later on. The insurance policy will include breakdown recovery, at least in Portugal, possibly in some other countries as well, but there's no if you break down in Portugal, even if you get a puncture, you call your insurance company and they send someone along to help you and recover the car if necessary. Most insurance premiums will include cover to drive within the EU, so there's no problem crossing the border into Spain or indeed anywhere else into Europe as you wish. And it's important to know that you have to display a small portion of your insurance certificate on the vehicle windscreen. And you will be fined if the police see that you're not doing that. Okay, now in terms of taxes, we all have to pay an annual road tax, commonly known as the IUC. It supposedly goes to the repair and maintenance of the roads. I'd like to put that to the test, but who knows? The cost varies depending on the age and engine size of the car. To give you some idea, a small family car registered in 2016 is about €130 per annum. The medium family saloon 2016 is about €146 per annum. And a large Mercedes or something like that will cost about €225 per annum. Vehicles registered up to 2007 have lower tax rates because I believe the law changed in 2007. So you will see a lot of people driving older cars in Portugal, and that will be one of the reasons. Then you have a vehicle safety inspection. Cars over 4 years of age must have an IPO test for roadworthiness that tests the brakes, the lights, the seat belts, the airbags, and so on. Once your car is 4 years old, you must go along to the IPO and have that test and have that certificate, which you then have to carry in the vehicle. Cars from 4 to 8 years old must be retested every 2 years, and then once they're over 8 years old, they must be retested every year. Appointment at the local IPO center, and there are plentiful. I have one just sort of 5 kilometers away from me, and the cost is about €30 for the test. Driving licenses. You must exchange your license for a Portuguese license within 90 days of establishing residency in Portugal. Now, there have been some recent changes in this, depending on your citizenship. And this was where we most wanted some assistance from ACP. We may not be up to speed on this, but please ask questions on this matter. If we can't answer them, we'll record it and we'll get back to you directly. When you want to exchange, or it can be done online by visit, and you can see there the address of imtonline.pt, or you can pay a visit to your local IMT office. Or if you're a member of ACP, they can do that for you. You will need a medical certificate from your doctor. I think you have to have a sanity test. Is that right, Carl? Is that what you had?
Clearly not.
No. But I think it's more about sanity than it is about sort of physical matters.
Yeah.
You'll need your residency permit, of course, and your current license. Now, the process is you give up your current license, or you surrender it, if you like. It can take a month, even longer, to get your new Portuguese license. In the meantime, they will give you a temporary license, a paper license as a temporary license. A Portuguese license is a standard UK-approved license and can be used in most other countries around the world, including USA, Canada, Australia, and UK. I've had a Portuguese license for about 7 or 8 years. I've rented cars without any problems in the US, in the UK, in France, Spain, and Ireland, I think, without any problem with my Portuguese license. But this is a question that often comes up, and people ask us this. However, there is something to keep in mind here. If you're in the process of applying for change to replace your current license, and you have the paper license may not be acceptable in another country. When you turn up at Avis in New York, for example, they might not accept the paper license. So that's something to keep in mind as you affect this change. We can talk more about this as best we can, but if there's something that we're not sure about, we'll take note of your questions and we will get back to you. So what else do you need to know about driving in Portugal? Well, at least on a general basis, before I hand over to Nuno. You must carry your ID or passport, your driving license, your insurance certificate, your safety certificate as well. You must carry those in the car at all times, as well as displaying a portion of your insurance certificate on the car windscreen. You must also carry a warning triangle and a high-vis jacket. So if you break down, you get your warning triangle and you place it, I don't know how far behind your car, 50 meters, something like that. Is that about, does anyone know? No?
Oh, Astrid knows.
Do you know, Astrid?
Yes, because don't forget, Jerry, I've had my car towed away.
Yes, you've had
at
some
least
really
3 times in the past week.
Okay.
So it's about 30 meters behind the car. You need to put the triangle up, and you will notice that people will stop tooting you to get out of the way once you do put that up, because people realize that you've broken down and you're just not being slow out of the roundabout or whatever it may be. And you have to wear the yellow vest that is compulsory to carry in the car. If you don't have it in the car and you get pulled over for an inspection without it, you get into a lot of trouble.
Right.
So,
Right.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Astrid. Thank you. Yes, we might come back to your personal experience from car breakdowns in a few minutes.
Okay.
A first aid kit is not legally necessary, but why wouldn't you carry a first aid kit in a car, and why wouldn't you carry high-vis jackets for all the passengers? It seems strange to me, if you break down on a highway, people are getting out of the car, why would only the driver wear a high-vis jacket? Surely all the passengers should have one on as well. So that would make a lot of sense to me, and they only cost about €3 or €4 each, I think. Toll fees are payable on the motorways, or many of the motorways. In some cases, as you enter a toll, you collect a ticket and you can pay at the other end as you exit the toll area. In other cases, the tolls are electronic, in which case you need to go to a pay shop Generally speaking, these are news agents, and every town will have at least one pay shop, if not several. You give them your car registration. I think you have to do it within 2 weeks of crossing a toll, and they can check on the machine and then collect the money from you. Or you can register with an organization called Via Verde, and you can buy an electronic tag, which is similar to Easy Pass in the States. You stick that on the windscreen, then you can drive through the Via Verde lanes at the tolls, and the money is automatically taken from your credit card or your bank account. There's a lot of argument about what the tolls will, how much the tolls cost. For instance, if I drive from my home in central Portugal to the Algarve, the toll fees will be more than 30 euros each way. So 60, 65 euros for the round trip, which sounds a lot until you factor that by using the motorways, I can do that trip in about 3.5 to 4 hours maximum. Whereas if I don't use the motorways, I think we're probably talking about 7 hours, at least 7 hours driving. So you get what you pay for. The motorways are very good, built to a very good standard here, and usually very quiet. I did a journey this morning on the major motorway, and I'm pretty sure I traveled round about 30 kilometers and didn't see one other car on the motorway. So there we are. That was a pleasure to drive. Now, when you want to look at importing a car or you want to matriculate a car into Portugal, if you've got issues with licenses, legal advice, Classic Car Club, motoring discounts, and much more, we recommend joining ACP, and we have discounts available, and you can apply for that through the business directory on our website. We get a lot of questions about people wanting to import cars into Portugal. It's not that easy to do. It's easier with cars registered in another European country. It becomes more difficult with cars outside of Europe because they're built to different standards, different specifications, and everything has to be changed to the European and possibly even the Portuguese specifications for the car to be legal and roadworthy here in Portugal. We've heard stories of people bringing over cars and not being able to get them through matriculation, and then they've ended up shipping them back. I have a friend who brought a BMW motorcycle in from Canada. It cost him 6,500 euros to matriculate the motorcycle, which was a European-built motorcycle anyway, but it was built to North American standards. And 6,500 was probably more than the motorcycle was worth. So we do recommend extreme caution with this. If you're keen to do it, then talk to the automobile club first and make sure that it's possible. There are the rules and regulations are relaxed for classic cars, but even then there are some requirements that need to be adhered to. So that's a general overview, and I'm going to stop for a moment and hand over to Nuno, and he's going to talk a little bit about some more specifics and share some information on insurance statistics and so on. Are you ready for that, Nuno?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Before talking about insurance, which I honestly will not talk about much. I will not talk much about insurance. I prefer entering on some details, some of them funny, but that in the end could be a problem if we are not aware of those little details, especially because we are in Portugal and we have a lot of these in all of our life. So regarding quotes, I recommend ask the dealer for a quote, because sometimes they have good agreements, so could be a better option. We try to be good and have good quotes, but we didn't or we don't win everyone. Sometimes we are ahead, sometimes we are behind. What is important is provide the service and the assistance that the ones that trust on us required. So compare quotes, ask for 2 or 3 persons or entities, and go ahead with the one that it seems to you more reliable. Regarding the cover, and this was something that you talk about, Jerry, which is that we are covered usually in Europe. Be aware that on the green card, we have like a table with some crosses under the, not the name of the country, but it's the abbreviation of the name of the country. And this is the cover for liability, okay? So we can have the cover for Europe or whatever for liability, and don't have the cover for the own damages. So be aware of this. If you are traveling outside of Portugal, ask to the one who has your insurance policy if you are covered for liability and for own damages. If you are not, you can ask for a temporary extension. Okay. So this is the first point. The second one is, if on the road the authorities stops you, the police or the GNR, before leave the car, because they can ask you to leave the car, before leave the car, you must wear the green vest. Otherwise, they could fine you. Okay, so before leave the car, wear the green vest. You also must have the car's documentation with you every time. So the car's documents nowadays is like a credit card. The older cars has 2 documents, but for new cars you have a type of credit card. Other points. Oh, regarding the insurance premiums that you present, Jerry, technology allows the insurers to introduce as many factors as they want regarding the calculation of the insurance premium. So they are changing those factors, not every day, but every month, probably. They give more importance to one factors rather than the others. So it's really a nightmare working in insurance, especially in auto insurance or car insurance. So that's why, once again, I recommend ask for different quotes, okay? Also be aware that the emergency number for ambulance, police, and so on is the 112, okay? Regarding the Via Verde, which I use, and often I use it to park a non-electric car on the city streets. So you can use it for tolls and also to park the car on the shop, on the mall, or in the streets. And for now, Jerry, those are the points that
Thank you.
I believe that they complement your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Nuno. I will go back now just to share a little bit more on buying cars in Portugal. Here we go. So I took a look today and to see what I could buy if I had a budget of 10,000, 15 or 20,000 euros. What kind of car could I buy, and what also what kind of prices would I need if I want an electric vehicle. And I thought I would just run through this very quickly just to give you an idea. And I won't go through it in too much detail. But for 10,000 euros or thereabouts, I could find a small runabout Fiat Panda 1.2 petrol with 58,000 kilometers, which I think is what, about 36,000 miles or something, 9,900 euros for a small car. A mid-sized car, certainly by Portuguese standards, would be a Ford Focus, 2016, 10,990. And then an SUV. Now, interestingly, SUVs are holding their prices much better than other cars are in Portugal. And this is the best SUV I could find in this price bracket. And it's back to 2009. I'm not quite sure why everybody likes to drive SUVs, but there are better deals to be had if you can stay away from them. 15,000. Well, we can get another Fiat Panda, but this time it's a petrol hybrid and it's almost new. It's done 18 kilometers. So that's an almost brand new car. Again, pretty good price. A mid-sized Skoda Fabia with very low mileage, 2019 for 15,750. Or again, an SUV. This is a small SUV. Peugeot 2008, it's manual, petrol, 15,990 euros. And then if I could stretch to 20,000, I could get a VW Polo, again, almost new, 3,000 kilometers, 2021, and it's a hybrid. A Toyota Aris, I think that's how you pronounce it. This is also an automatic. It's a hybrid, a little bit more expensive because Toyotas are expensive here, but still not a bad price for that car, that condition. Or a Kia Stonic manual for an SUV. Again, a small engine, but you don't need large engines in Portugal. And again, practically a new car for just under 20,000 euros. All those prices are negotiable. All those cars come with warranties, and they're all through dealers. And then finally, I took a look at electric cars. Now, electric cars are still new. They're still rolling them out. But I could get a small Fiat 500e. Which would be a perfectly good city car, but it only has a range of 130 kilometers on a full battery charge. But again, almost new, 25,890. VW ID3, I know very little about them, but it has a bigger range, 400 kilometers. Again, not far off new, 2021, 6,000 kilometers, but the prices are starting to increase, 38,000 for that. And our old friend, the Teslas, this is the best priced Tesla I could find today. I purposely went for the long range just to show the 600 kilometer range car, 76,000 kilometers on the clock, 44,500. So that's the Tesla prices are starting to come down, and there are quite a lot of Teslas now in Portugal, and they're becoming quite a lot on the second-hand market now as they move through. Someone has asked a question about incentives to buy electric cars, which we can cover in a moment, but I think there are a lot of Teslas in particular now are bought by businesses, and they're coming onto the second-hand market, and I think there's quite a lot of them around. So that's about it. Thank you all for listening to us both. Nino and I are here now and welcome your questions, but we'll stop the presentation there. Thank you very much.
That's superb, Jerry. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent, both of you. And we are here to answer those questions now, many of which have appeared in the chat already. And some were even sent ahead of time as well. So thank you, everybody, for supplying questions to us this evening, which we'll do our best to answer. first line of defense or attack, whichever way you're looking at it, will be Jerry and Nuno. I'm sure Astrid and I will chip in as well. And of course, the hive mind of other people here on the call who may have approached similar issues as we're seeing in the chat as well. So let's work our way through those now. And well, a few greetings first. Nice to welcome people from all around the world. Dave's in Alcobaça in Portugal, Paul in Alvor in the Algarve, in case you didn't know. Suzanne in Pittsburgh. Good evening to you. Still planning to move to Portugal eventually. Is there some other help you need, Suzanne? That sounds a little bit like your patience might be being tested. Barack in Texas. Gary with a few questions in Castanera de Pera. Good to see you this side of the water now, Gary. Excellent. Because we remember last year you were making your way here. You're here now, which is fantastic. And Justin in Mangwald, which I think is in the Viseur district. Thank you for being here. And let's get to a first. Oh, this is a statement rather than a question. I bought an automatic diesel car. Incredible mileage from that kind of fuel. Thank you, Cheryl. And you're sharing that it was a 2018 Mercedes. In Setúbal. So there's a good recommendation, a personal recommendation of both a vehicle and a dealer by the sound of it there. That's good to know. And please do share if you have any good recommendations of particular models or dealers. And I know for Americans, it's the automatics that you'll be wanting information of rather than the stick shift. But any recommendations of vehicles and or dealers are very gratefully received on the forum. I've just been told this is from Joyce. Thank you, Joyce, for this one. Maybe we can put this to Nuno. I mean, it's so difficult to get comprehensive insurance for a motorhome, camping car, and even more so when it's over 6 years old. Is this right? Is there a special kind of prejudice against camper van owners here in Portugal, Nuno?
Hi. So yes, it's true. It's not easy, and I believe that it's my belief that this is due to the short market, because insurance insurance numbers is constructed upon big numbers, and there are no many vans, and I believe that this is one of the factors. Not that the caravans and similar vehicles has more accidents rather than the others, but I believe that is because we are a short market, and the insurance is a high premium.
So there is a bit of a difficulty there, and also with the inspection part of camper vans, I don't think the Portuguese government are too keen on personally modified vehicles, are they? There's quite a high specification that you have to pass. Yeah. When it
I'm not keen with that.
Yeah, so be careful with that as well. If you've just got a transit with a mattress in the back, kind of conversion and a bit of paneling, it has to be quite a rigorous specification for a camper van in Portugal, as I understand it. Thank you, Nuno.
I believe that some modifications we can ask a special inspection, but we are not sure that they will approve.
Okay, so be careful with that. You could run into difficulties either being refused or additional costs with those sorts of things. Thank you for that question, Joyce. Kelly reporting that I'm currently in the process of exchanging my license. And of course, this is probably the controversial topic of the evening, license exchange. Things have changed with this, and there doesn't seem to be any consistency. It can only be done online. It can only get done online. You can't go to the local IMT, is what Kelly is suggesting. So maybe that's an old thing or a particular IMTs. It's important to start the process, though, one way or another. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Jerry, but of course, EI, Gilda's team, help with license exchange. Carla there. But that doesn't mean to say they're going to help you beat the queue. We still know of people who used EI who had to wait over a year for a license exchange. Once it's in the hands of the IMT, it's anybody's guess as to when that will be returned. But you can outsource that to EI, and they will help you with that, as well as the ACP, as we found out tonight. Good to know, says Suzanne, that the inspection depends on the age of the car. In the US, inspection is annual for all cars, and €30 is quite inexpensive. It is very good value. And as Jerry said, there seem to be inspection centres all over the place, don't there, in Portugal, even remote places. Go ahead, Nuno.
Regarding the inspection, it also depends of the type of the car, because commercials, I believe that they need the first inspection is on the third year, and then every year, I believe. But I know that family cars, yes, the inspection time is accordingly with what Jerry told.
Mhm.
But commercial cars and other kind of cars like caravans, they have different times to inspection. Okay.
So a major takeaway of the evening then with this, well, I mean, all areas of Portuguese life, but particularly with motoring, is don't take things for granted. It's worth checking and double checking with all of these things and sharing that information on the forum. This is where the forum is invaluable, where, you know, learning from people's mistakes as well as their research. I think if people could share what they've been through on the forum, it's really helpful to everybody else. Kelly, if you have to exchange your license within 90 days of establishing residency, is that 90 days after you receive your residency card from CEF, or 90 days from the date of your CEF meeting when they give you the temporary permit? I believe that is when you become resident officially.
Yes.
You have 90 days to do that, Kelly. Would you agree there, Jerry?
Yes, because you have to bring your residency permit along with you. So yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jerry. My wife has corrected vision 20/70 and drives with modified glasses. She does drive in the US. Will it be an issue in Portugal? Jerry, Nuno, do you have any experience of this sort of issue with vision issues? Nuno, you're muted up, Nuno, there. If you have got an answer.
Sorry, no, I don't have any experience. What I know is that if we have in our driver's license that we use glasses, so the police could ask for the glasses, but they cannot evaluate.
Yeah.
Sounds like you have one of those eye tests by the side of the
If
road.
you see you well or not.
Right. Okay.
That's a very interesting point that Nuno makes, because I wear glasses when I'm looking at computer screens and so on, and sometimes I wear them for driving, but I don't need them for driving so much. But when I went for my medical, the doctor, I was wearing the glasses because I was reading something for him, and he straight away wrote down, "Oh, you wear glasses." So now I have to wear glasses when I drive.
There you go. Okay, and present them to the officer if necessary, by the sound of it.
After I put on my yellow jacket.
After you put on, somebody did say green vest, green, yellow, the gilet jaune, the high vis jacket basically is what we're talking about here, and very important to have those. And to add something to the earlier comments, get the people out of the vehicle with the high vis vest on and get them on the other side of the safety barrier. So it's best that people get out of the car with the high vis vest on. That's the guidance. Go on, Nuno.
So it's not the question of being yellow or green.
Right.
They must they must comply with a certification number.
Yeah.
So the police can ask to see if the vest, green, yellow, whatever, if it complies with that certification. If not, it's the same as if you are not wearing the yellow or green vest.
There you go.
So
well, thank you for that.
Don't take for granted that if you buy a yellow green vest on a Chinese shop, for instance, So.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Now, and
Astrid needs to go out and check her vest now.
Loads of people will be now. Thank you to Nuno this evening. It's like, not only do we have a yellow or green vest, it's got to be ISO, whatever regulation, green or yellow. So, but thank you for that. And I don't know if it was you, Nuno, but somebody has cynically suggested before that when you do get stopped for a check, and there are quite a number of things, it's quite a gauntlet you run through with the insurance in the window and the insurance in the glove compartment and a yellow jacket for everybody, that the intent is probably to give you a fine anyway. And you may well, given that there are like double digits of things that you need to comply with, in many ways you should expect put a little bit of a budget aside for roadside fines. I think that was what was suggested to me, and I think that's quite good advice, ranging from the 80 to the €200 fine, depending on which bit you haven't got or which particular yellow vest designation you don't have. Would you agree with that, Julian?
I would certainly. I got fined for crossing a white line. When I pointed out to the policeman that you couldn't see the white line because it was faded out, he said, "It doesn't matter, you still crossed over it."
And let me see your glasses.
let me have 65 euros, please.
With the
But he
glasses on or
didn't
off?
get me. When I got out of the car to pay him, he didn't pull me up for not wearing my vest. So I got away lightly, I guess.
Well, yes, like Greenlee, or yes.
Yeah.
I think yes, he had that opportunity and didn't take it. But of course,
Didn't take it. No,
yeah,
no, no.
Okay.
It was obviously a good day elsewhere.
Yes, thank you for that. Okay, where were we? We were talking about license exchanges. Again, yeah, the forum is a great place for people to update their own experiences. We'll get to you, Paul and Mark, in just a moment after we've dealt with a few questions here from the chat. People have been very patient. Thank you. Gail and Dwight here from New Mexico. Great to see you. Can we get some clarification on the VAT exemption for electric cars costing less than 62,500 euros? Does it apply to individual owners or companies? The dealer wasn't too clear about it. Jerry, you might want to pick up on this. And of course, the other question that came up about should we lease a car? Who was that? A little bit later on. Should we lease something before we can get our electric vehicle? And generally speaking, the whole business of procuring an electric vehicle, Jerry, would you like to go into that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did actually intend to mention leasing earlier, and I ran out of time. But let's start with the question about the cars. As I understand it, the tax incentives are only available to businesses. There is a limit of 62,500 on the price of the car. The VAT or the EVA is reclaimable through the business, and the driver of the car does not get any additional taxation for the privilege of driving the car. So it's a really, really good incentive. That's not the case if it's a non-electric vehicle. Then you know, those things immediately go out the window. But the other thing that's very interesting here is that there's when I did it, I thought the car I eventually ordered, I thought went slightly over the price, and I assumed that I might have a little bit of tax to pay for the difference. But I was then informed that that's not the case. If I go over the price, I pay the full tax on the car, which I think was 10% of the value of the car or something. Fortunately, it turned out to be that I was under the bracket. But you can't go and buy a car for 70,000 and say, well, I'll just pay the tax on the difference. It doesn't work like that. You pay the car has to be 62,500 or under. As far as I know, that's only available to businesses, and it's not available to private individuals. Can you add to that, Nuno?
I believe so. And so sorry for what I'm going to say, because if the car dealer don't answer you about their business, so don't buy the car, either the insurance. So yes, everything that you said, it's true, but it's also true that as an individual person, we can access to the Portuguese fund or to support the buying electric vehicles. I think that the amount that the government fund is roughly 2,500 euros per person, but they have like 1,000 or 2,000 or 500 process, so that they have an amount, they have a budget, so an amount to spend with those funds. It's not like the VAT. So we must buy the car, and after buying the car, we must ask for the reimbursement of the, I believe, 2,500 euros.
Okay. Thank you very much, electric vehicle drivers, Jerry and Nuno. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So, and then moving on to lease cars. Lease cars are becoming quite popular in Portugal. There's a company called Lease Plan, and unbelievably, they have something like already have 400 employees in Portugal, just covering their business in Portugal. So it's quite a big business. A lot of companies are now leasing cars as opposed to buying cars. The problem for an expat coming in is to have the credit rating to be able to lease a car, or indeed finance a car in any way, and that's something that needs to be checked carefully. It's not that easy to lease cars if you haven't got a good credit status in Portugal.
Yeah.
And most of us, when we come in, we're starting from zero as far as credit ratings are concerned. So that can be challenging when you're leasing a car, but they are available from about 300 euros a month upwards. There are lease deals. 300 euros would probably get you one of those little small Fiats that I showed earlier in my presentation. It would be fully maintained, probably include insurance and tires and road tax and everything else. But we'll have a limit on the kilometers. It'll probably be limited to around 10 or 15,000 kilometers per year. And the lease could be anything from 3 to 4 to 5 years. The shorter time you have it, the more miles you want to sign up for, the higher, the more expensive the lease becomes. Lease prices in Portugal are nowhere near as low as they are in other parts of Europe, but I think that's changing, and I think it will become a more attractive option for people in the future. But there is that issue that if you're going to go out and a company's going to hand you a 30 or 40,000 euro car, they're going to want some sort of security for the lease period of that car, and it might not be that easy to get when you first arrive in Portugal.
That's great, Jerry. Thank you. And I think that answers Bonnie's question and Rhonda's to a great extent as well. The other option, of course, is car hire or rental, as you would call it in the US.
Yeah.
That has calmed down a little bit now. The pricing was crazy in the last 12 months, last 2 years. But I think it's settled down again. And of course, if you take a rental or hire car, you'll probably have unlimited mileage, which could be quite useful when you first come to Portugal and tour. So think about that as well. Zest, the partners of Expats Portugal, of course, to get a quote for that. Nuno, did you want to add something?
Yeah, that specific kind of lease with the tires and the limit of kilometers and so on, we called renting.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Which is confusing.
Yeah. I know. Yes, I know. I know that. Everywhere else calls it leasing, but in Portugal, that's renting. Yes.
Yes. and Americans, of course, call hiring renting, don't they? Drive it like a rental. So be careful what you're signing up for there. But basically, there is that confusion with the words there. But I think that helps Rhonda. I hope it does Bonnie and Heather as well. Heather was asking about the best way to go about buying a new car. I think that Jerry's dealt with that, Heather. But if you have any further questions on that, do let us know. And I think you've also, you've asked about financing as well. And I think the same answer would apply from Jerry there. If you're new to the country, it can be a little bit of a challenge. Little brace of questions from Gary. Thank you for these. If I buy a European vehicle, say from Germany, do I have to pay the massive tax based on CO2 emissions? I'm looking at a VW Transporter. If anyone here on the call tonight has a VW Transporter with 9 seats in it, Gary's looking for one of those. This thing of importing cars from other parts of Europe, it was seen as a little bit of a loophole, wasn't it? And Portugal were going up against the EU in allowing that to happen and then charging people a tax. Do you have anything to add to that, Jerry or Nuno?
Well, I looked at it in the past, and it's not straightforward.
Yeah.
I looked at one point about buying a car in another country and importing it into Portugal. And once I'd imported the car, it would have cost me nearly as much as it would have done to buy the car in Portugal. So it doesn't really work. If it did work, we'd all be going to Spain to buy our cars, and we don't, right? Yeah. That's the first point. And then you can hit some of these problems with matriculation and so on. And the only thing to keep in mind, though, if you're buying a new car in Portugal, what can often catch you out unawares is the specification of that car will be lower than it would be if you'd bought the same car in Germany, for example.
Yeah.
I bought a car one time in Portugal. I won't even tell you what it cost me, but I realized after about 3 weeks the alarm wasn't working. And I went back to the dealer. I said, the alarm doesn't work. And he said, you didn't specify an alarm.
But you got some nice mats, I expect.
I did get some nice mats, yeah. And a little sticker for my insurance certificate.
Yeah, very good. Nunu, what else do you want to add to that?
I want to add just one detail. It is there are people moving from other countries of Europe to Portugal, and they could think that once that they have the car, so it just came to Portugal with the car. But once you get residency, if you don't change the plate to a Portuguese one, the police will fine you and can retain the car until you start the process of changing the plate number to a Portuguese one.
Thank you for that. And that's connected to Gary's other question. If I buy a left-hand drive car and keep it for 6 months before I bring it to Portugal, are you also exempt from the big import tax? I think it's the same response, really. And the challenge, the problem you've got with these things is, although you think you might be able to do it and someone said you could do it down the pub or whatever, ultimately, if there's a fine to be paid, you will have to pay it, and the government will always get the last word on these things. And if it's a tight margin on it, it really isn't worth the stress and bother, I think, in a lot of these instances. So be careful with that. You know, the government will get the last word on all of these things. Is the ACP? This is your other question, Gary, and we'll come to you, Paul and Mark. Thank you for being so patient in just a minute. Is the ACP, Automóvil Club de Portugal, like the AA or RAC in the UK? And
yes,
I break down. How quickly do they respond? So it's an interesting one. It is an absolute yes, isn't it? It's the AAA in the US as well, but there is no roadside assistance here, is there, Jerry? It's all recovery, and your vehicle is taken away.
Well, let's ask our breakdown expert, Astrid.
Astrid, over to you.
Well, I'm so happy I can talk about this. Not, but I've had major car problems for the past 3 weeks. And I've had it towed twice. So for me, my car completely stopped. So there was no chance of any kind of repair, however, or fixing on the spot. But they did come to ask a lot of questions. Well, when you go and ask for a tow truck or you register with your insurance that there's something wrong, they usually ask what's wrong. So if you've run out of fuel, they'll bring you fuel. If you've got a flat tire, they'll fix your tire. But in this instance, my car just died. So when it was here in Cascais, it took about 2.5 hours before the tow truck came. And when I was in Arexada last weekend, it took about 40 minutes for the tow truck to come. So very different time differences depending on where you are, and I guess what day of the week it is as well. But they were great. They came, everyone spoke English. They were very helpful, just took the cars away, and that was it. So yeah, but you did have the option when you called for help to state what your problem was, that the right service could come and fix the problem.
Very good. And this is another point to be aware of, isn't it? Is that most insurance policies do have a breakdown element as well. So you being in the ACP is useful for all sorts of reasons. But am I right in assuming, Nuno, that most insurance policies have a breakdown element as well, and they'll send somebody out to you?
I don't know any auto insurance policy without road assistance.
Okay.
What differentiates ACP, for instance, is that they could also provide local assistance. Usually, when we ask for, when we have our car stopped and it must be fixed to a shop, car shop, they just took the car and they don't do whatever to the car on the local. But ACP, I know that in certain minor situations, they provide local assistance, and we can go on with our car. We can follow the trip.
Okay. All right. So maybe
I think I'll just add to that, if I may, just add a little bit to that. I think they also provide a certain amount of cover. From memory, I think it's about 600 euros in any 1 year if you break down. So, which is not generally covered with the regular insurance breakdown cover. So in some cases that could be quite useful to have the €600 paid. And Astrid, back to your tragedies in the last few weeks. I think also knowing you're a woman on your own, I think they will respond quickly as well, and especially if you're in a country road or something like that. I think they give priority.
Thank you.
I can't fault the service that I got. It was amazing. Yeah. And the other good thing was that I got to choose the mechanic where the car got towed to. So I think that's another good thing, that with the insurance you can choose your. I'm assuming it's based on the level of cover that you've got, but it went to the mechanic that we always use for Mercedes. So.
Excellent.
I have a friend whose car broke down at home. It just wouldn't start. He didn't even know about this. I said, "What, have you looked at your insurance? Call your recovery people." He called them. They came out. They couldn't fix the car, but they tried to outside his house.
Oh, really?
But they towed the car into the local dealer or whatever to get it fixed. So even if you get in your car in the morning and it won't go or something wrong, the recovery people will still come out.
Very good. Thank you, all of you, for your answers there. We'll come back to your questions, Vadim, Vicky, and Shamim in the chat, and Lionel. Thank you. But Mark has been waiting for ages. Mark Proudfoot, good evening to you. Thank you for your patience. And we need you to unmute after all of that.
Hang on.
Mark, can we have you unmuted? It'll be a shame to make you wait that long and then not be able to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Loud and clear.
Mark Proudfoot. I've been trying to exchange my driving license since about late 2020, midst COVID.
Wow.
It was actually a paper exercise, and then it's turned to a form that was done electronically and submitted to them. And I've got a receipt dated, I think, July of 2021, and an email saying I would hear from them in due course. Not had a thing. What would you advise me to do?
Wow. Okay. So you've got a piece of paper to show that you have handed it in, which I think is very useful.
Well, I've handed an application in, but you didn't have to send your driving license at that point.
Oh, okay. Okay. What do you reckon, Jerry? Nuno, what would you suggest?
I had an issue with this when I changed my Australian driver's license to a Portuguese one. And they told me that they were going to post my new license to me in the mail. And I waited and waited and waited, and nothing happened. And I ended up having to go in and query about it, and it was sitting there waiting for me to be picked up the whole time. So it could be something that's happened for you as well, but they didn't post it to me like they said they were going to. I had to go and pick it up. Yeah,
I've not even submitted my British driving license yet. I've not had that request back from them. Mm-hmm. I have a brother here, and he actually applied about a month later than me and got it all done within 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Mark, it very much sounds to me like something's gone wrong, because if I look at my Portuguese driving license, on the back of my Portuguese driving license is the number of my British license, my original British license. So that's the exchange. So effectively that confirms that I've exchanged the licenses. If I ever wanted to exchange them back again, I could do that. So if they haven't got your British license, it sounds very much to me like they're not doing anything. Something's gone wrong.
Yeah, because I think the process was they wanted some money and send your driving license with the money, and then my brother got his back, his Portuguese driving license.
I think you definitely need to surrender your original driver's license to get the exchange. In Australia, your driver's license is your #1 form of ID, like carrying around your passport. That your driver's license is what you use for everything. So for me to surrender that was like me giving away my passport. It was really, really worrying for me. But you definitely have to surrender that. And then what I ended up doing is when I went back to Australia to visit, I went to Vic Roads, which is the driver's license issuer, and I asked for a new driver's license. So I had both of them, even though I wasn't supposed to, based on Portuguese law. I still went back and got another one, said that I'd lost it or whatever it was, and I got another Australian driver's license.
Well done.
I think
well done, Astrid. We're not recording this, and it's not going out the internet, so you're okay.
Legal, so not illegal, but yes, I have both.
So if I needed somebody to deal with that, what would be the best people to use now?
ACP. Reach out to them; they'll help you.
Yeah. And maybe a visit to your, this isn't what you should do. This isn't the law, but maybe a visit to your local IMT office and ask them, what's going on. That would be one approach, is just to pop in, show them the paper.
Failing that, ACP. But I'd try the visit first, but if that doesn't work, Mark, just drop us a line and we'll connect you with ACP.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been into a number of IMT offices when I was trying to change mine. It went very well in the end. And the sanity test that Jerry referred to earlier on was a medical rather than a sanity test. And that can be done quite easily at a private doctor's, which is what we did. And the doctor is able, as a registered doctor, to access the IMT or the Portuguese health system and say that you are indeed sane and well enough in their opinion to drive. And I had to pay him for that, but I think that's only to be expected.
I've done all that in Cascais down by the
you've done that bit? Okay, all right.
I sent the mail off to where they gave me the address, the application, then talked to them, emailed them a couple of times, and they said, oh, you've been processed. And then they said they wanted an electronic form filling in, and I got a receipt and a number, and not a word since.
I think a prompt in person at an IMT office might be good.
I'd go and see them. Yeah.
As a suggestion, it's like, if I was you, basically, rather than that being the law or anything. Because as you can see with your brother, there's no rhyme or reason to these things. People's licenses are definitely getting lost in the system, or if not their license, then their paperwork. So I think you might need to instigate that. Put a bit of a laxative into the system, basically.
My passport has been renewed, my driving license has been, UK driving license has been renewed, so it gets. Yep. So where would the nearest ITM office be to Cascais then?
I think it would have
I looked up, hang on, it was in my presentation.
IMT.pt, isn't it?
Yeah, IMT, I think it's imtonline.pt.
There you go.
I had to go to get my driver's license renewed this week, and it was in the Loja, the Citizal in Cascais.
There you go.
That's that's another good tip. Yeah.
Okay. Is that good for you there, Mark? Should we move?
That's a starting point in the Loja Cascais.
It is a starting point. Keep us informed how that goes.
I was there this week, so they can definitely help you.
Don't forget to take a ticket, Mark, when you go in.
Yeah. Get there early.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Get there early. Bring a sandwich.
All the best. Take a book. Yeah. Paul, good evening to you. A keen motorist for sure, right? So I'm sure you've got a few anecdotes to share around motoring in Portugal.
Well, it's on a very similar subject to Mark, actually. Once you're a resident and you hand in your, well, in my case, a UK driving license, and you get your piece of paper, if you're going to go back to your own country, like for me it would be the UK, the hire companies will not accept that as proof of a license, even if you've got a D737. So what you can do, you can go to your IMT office and you can actually ask for your license back, which they will give you, but it stops the process. But it gives you your license back, so you can go back to your original country and you have your original country license. But as I say, it does stop the process in Portugal. So when you come back to Portugal, you have to hand your license back in and the system starts again.
That's really helpful, Paul. Thank you for that, because that's a horrible situation to be in, isn't it? Is taking a piece of paper back to your country of origin and then not being able to hire a car, even though you're obviously entitled to do so. Thank you for that. Was there anything else?
I've got one workaround to that. Some of the companies, like Avis, for example, you can register your license on their members club or whatever they're called.
Oh, very good.
Their privilege club or something. And once you've registered your license with them, they don't ask for it when you go to pick up a rental.
Excellent. Yeah, good to know.
That's always a possible option.
Thank you for that, Jerry. Paul, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just one question to Jerry. Where does he buy fuel at 164 in the Algarve?
I don't go. Why would I go to the Algarve, Paul? Fuel's too expensive.
Sorry, Paul. You'll have to go to Spain. Pop across.
You cross the border.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, good.
Yeah, on this special day in Portuguese history, you still drive to Spain to get your fuel. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. All right. Vicky, question. I'd like to know more about the new registration or regulations about the driver's license exchange. I'm 54 and my US license expires in 2027. I'm thinking I should just hold on to it now since the regulations have changed. Is that what you'd recommend? Are you nodding there, Nuno?
Yeah, I believe that this is one of the situations that you are allowed to drive in Portugal, not in Europe, in Portugal, with your driver's license up to 2027.
Yes. Okay. And the other part of this, though, is that there are ages at which you need to be retested. So some people are thinking of doing a strategic license swap, so that their license is valid beyond that point at which they would otherwise be retested for the driving test in Portugal. That's something to bear in mind as well. But do you know what those ages are, Nuno, for getting retested? Is it 60, the first one?
At 50 is the first time that they ask for the renewal.
Right.
The authorities ask for the renewal of the driver's license. And then I believe the next one is at 60, with 60 years old.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I don't know. I really don't know.
All right, but that's something to bear in mind, that you will be retested at certain points in older age here in Portugal. Shamim, any comments? Sorry, Nuno, go on.
It's not a test. Like we don't need to test our knowledge about how to drive. It's more at 50. It's only ask for the renewal. They don't do any medical exam or don't ask for any medical report. It's just the renewal of the driver's license. With 60 years old, I truly believe that they ask for a doctor report.
Okay, medical rather than technical in terms of the license update. Okay, thank you for that. That's really good. Any comments regarding purchasing a vehicle in another EU country and importing it? I think we've dealt with that. Shamim, if you've got anything more on that, do let us know. And anyone else who's got any questions, do put your hand up or electronic hand up and we can deal with that. Been an amazingly informative session tonight. It's 20 to 9 already. Well done, Jerry and Nuno and Astrid. Thank you for your contributions. Does Lionel M asking, does the driver's abstract need to be translated into Portuguese for the IMT? I don't think so. What would you say about that, Jerry?
I'm sorry, Carl, I was reading. I
believe it's the paper. With Lionel M's question, does the driver's abstract need to be translated into Portuguese for the IMT? I'm assuming that's the paper part of the Portugal, but maybe the driver's abstract is something else in another culture. Does that ring any bells?
I don't know what's a driver's abstract. I don't know what that is.
Can we have a bit more on that, please, Lionel? Gary, I think we've dealt with your question there. What do they do with your US driver's license when you exchange it? Do they destroy it, send it back to your US state, eventually return it to you if you leave Portugal, etc.? Jerry?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the country of origin. And I think it's possible to sort of reverse it back if ever you want to do that. I think that's what happens. Otherwise, why would my Portuguese driving license have reference to my British driving license?
Yeah, and if you don't want your country of origin to know where you are, maybe that's something to bear in. That's where he ended up, in Portugal. Okay, the FBI and CIA find out. Do any manufacturers offering car subscription services that include insurance, maintenance? Okay, as Volvo and some of the, presumably the luxury marques in the US do. This is basically a short-term lease up to 24 months, but the car can be turned in at any time after 5 months with no penalty. What would you say to Leah's question there, Jerry?
Volvo started to do this. I think Volvo currently the only manufacturer that are doing it, but you can actually now rent a Volvo car. Volvo think it's going to be the future. We're not going to buy the cars anymore. We're just going to pay them lots of money and rent them. Okay. The only problem with that is that there are no Volvo cars to acquire at the moment. You can't get them for love nor money.
Interesting.
I looked at getting one and the guy said at least a year, probably 2 years.
And that's the
before
case
it could
not
be
only with
delivered.
Volvo, right? I mean, it's not easy to get the car you want necessarily in Portugal. That's another point, isn't it, to make?
No. Not for a new car. I mean, like everywhere, new cars are in short supply because of the chip thing, but particularly electric cars are even harder to get. But they are few and far between, new cars at the moment, brand new cars. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for
You
that.
might be lucky and find one. You might find one that someone's cancelled an order or something like that. That seems to happen a lot. But failing that, you might have to go for a 1-year-old or something.
All right. So yes is the answer to your question, Leah, but it's short supply, unfortunately, with the actual stock. This is a question from Vadim. Are fines paid on the spot? Then ideally, yes. When I had my fine, I was told I could. You don't have to pay it on the spot. You can have 15 days, I think, but they keep all the documents or part of the documents, and you have to go and kind of some of your documents are held to ransom, and you can pay the fine to get them back. It's easier to pay on the spot. When I was fined, the police officer didn't have the credit card machine and told me where the nearest cash machine was. And I asked him, if I drive off with that and you've got all my stuff, am I going to get stopped again by somebody else now? But no, it was fine. We went and got some cash from a cash machine. And yes, you can pay on the spot and in cash. Okay, Vicky, I reached out about leasing a couple of months ago following one of your webinars. Could you speak to something that came up? I was told the lease could not be in it any longer than my residence permit. Do you know anything about this, Jerry? Or is that perhaps one? Perhaps if you email Jerry directly on that.
I would have to check that out. I haven't come up against that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
no, I have no experience with that. I'm sorry, I don't know because I don't have that issue. But if you send me a message about that, Vicky, I'll gladly check it out with the right people and get back to you.
There. Fantastic. Thanks, Jerry, for that. Speaking of credit rating, more general point there, not necessarily about motoring. Does our credit rating from the US not transfer over? I think not. If not, how does one build credit in Portugal? Jerry, Nuno.
Get lots of credit cards and pay them off.
That's the way, isn't it? That seems to be the way.
To do it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't transfer over. I think if you keep a certain amount of money in your current accounts and things, that helps a lot. I personally experienced it. I couldn't get them to increase the limit of my credit card. They weren't giving me enough cover to travel. You know, if you rent a car in America or whatever, you need $1,000 deposit just on the card. And if you've only got 1,500 euros on the card, that doesn't go very far. And the answer I was given was that transfer money into my current account from my savings funds, apply for the credit increase, and then when I get it, take the money out and put it back. That's what I was told to do. That's the best advice they could give me.
There you go. Barak, that's for you. Gina, I think this is one for you, Jerry, or Nuno, actually. What is the charging network like in Portugal for electric vehicles?
Well, I'll go first. For Teslas or for all vehicles?
I think Gina is talking about Teslas.
Well, let's run through it. Tesla don't have that many what they call supercharging stations. There are only, I think, about 5 or 6. Is that right, Nuno? Around the country, but they are quite well strategically located on sort of the major highways north and south. But then there are other chargers which aren't as quick as Tesla, but they are cheaper than Tesla. And in my experience, the speed might be, you know, to get a charge from up to about 40% charge or something might take 40 minutes, whereas it may have taken 25 minutes with Tesla. And they're everywhere. All the major service stations have charging units now. Pretty much all the supermarkets, if they haven't got them, they're getting them. I was in Qashqai last week. I needed a charge. I pulled in at a Lidl supermarket and had no problem getting a charge. And I The card I have it's with an organization called MIO, which Nuno recommended to me, MIIO, I think it's called. And that card works with all the other systems. So you only have to have one card. And you plug in, you tap the card, and away you go, and your credit card is charged directly.
Very good. Thanks for that, Jerry. McDonald's also have electronic charging.
Yeah.
But don't eat the Mac Bafana. Stay off that. Mark, did you have something to add?
Yeah, the store in Cascais has only had that fitted in the last 2 months. If you'd gone 3 months ago, you'd have had no electric charging point there.
Okay, well done, Niddle.
In Cascais? No, but we were in Ericeira the weekend, and I had at least 6 chargers to choose from before I left the sort of town perimeter.
So, Gina, in answer to your question, it's fairly good by the sound of it, and it's growing, which is the good news.
Yeah, it is growing.
Going in the right direction.
Every service station you pull into now, you'll see the machines if they're not already up and running, they're being installed.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, quick hack on the toll roads. You can pay online if you've gone through the gantry system where you've not been able to buy a ticket. But the easiest way, as I've discovered or rediscovered just recently, pop into the post office, give your registration number. They'll tell you how much you owe, and you can pay it right there. You can pay someone else's. Just all you have to do is give a registration number. You don't have to prove ownership or anything like that. A couple of quickies then, because it's we're into the last 10 minutes, and I want to give people a chance to just open up their mics and ask a question that we haven't seen or has been buried here. But this is useful to have in the recording, I think. For you, Nick, the car that you have went from when you lived in Europe before. That sounds like a job for ACP. But your other part of your question there, which we can put to Nuno now, can I get insurance in Portugal on foreign plates, Nuno? Does it have to be a Portugal residence? Does one have to have Portugal residence, or does the car have to be Portuguese registered to get insurance?
Well, you must have the NIF. Without the NIF, you don't exist in Portugal. So having the NIF is mandatory. Then we can provide cover for liability, but not for own damages. And you must be in the process of getting the Portuguese plates.
Okay, there you go, Nick. That's great, Nuno. Thank you very much. And another one for you, Nuno, as we conclude with the recording here. Does insurance cover everything without deductibles and excesses, as they might be known elsewhere? Or the higher a deductible, the lower the annual premium? So are there excesses, deductibles with motoring insurance?
Yes. There are a zero deductible, but has lower the deductible, has higher the insurance premium.
Okay, so you can negotiate at the time of taking out the insurance for that. And what about no claims bonuses? Is that a thing in Portugal?
Yes, and we also are able to get the history that you bring from United States or England.
That's good to know. Okay, I would have guessed that wouldn't be the case, but this is an international system now, and you might be able to get a no claims bonus or discount based on your driving history.
We only need a letter from the previous insurer saying from how many years you have the insurance policy without claims.
Amazing. Okay,
how many years? Not the bonus. But how many years?
Very good. Very good. So worth asking your broker or your agent for before you travel, perhaps. Make that a little bit easy. Another thing to add to the list of things to do before you come to Portugal. So we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Jerry, and to you, Nuno, and to you, Astrid, for your input here, and to Paul as well for your observations. We'll stop the recording there. And of course, this is a good reason to be a premium member of Expats Portugal. You get to be in on the call as a priority, and you can ask the questions, and which we will do now as I close the recording and open up the mics. Oh, Nuno, did you want to add something for the recording?
Yes, I want to add some only one information. Because most of the insurance policies don't cover accidents between people related as a family up to the 3rd degree. So, for example, a couple, if they have an accident, both driving, usually the insurance policy don't cover. So
What a
because it's
fascinating
really
insight.
with the moral risk. There are insurers that covers this, but usually they don't cover. So just an information for you.
Is that to deal with the Latin temperament? You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. Let's leave that as the final point you're making tonight. Thank you very much, Nuno. As you can see, if you want to get in touch with Nuno for a quote, I am safe at winsurance.pt, or give him a call on that number there. Great job. Thank you so much, Jerry, Nuno, and Astrid. Let's stop the recording now and go to some open questions.